Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Blanca had always dreamed of having a family, and when a caring and ambitious young man entered her life, she believed she had finally found her happiness. A few weeks before the wedding, a mysterious gypsy stopped her and spoke eerie words. What the girl heard turned her world upside down. Blanca walked through the fish stalls of the market located not far from her workplace. She wanted to prepare a special dinner for herself and Jose tonight. He had been tense lately, something was not going well with his business. Blanca didn't know exactly what her fiancé did. He owned a company that provided repair and construction services. As far as she understood, Jose mostly worked with legal entities, small shops, some studios, and similar businesses. But he dreamed of something bigger, and, as Blanca realized, he had quite concrete plans. "Soon everything will work out for me," Jose often said enthusiastically, "and then we will truly start living. We'll travel to resorts. I've long dreamed of visiting many places with you. We'll move somewhere nicer, and we won't have to deny ourselves anything. And finally, we'll have a child." These conversations warmed Blanca's heart. She and Jose were a real family. Finally, she had someone who cared about her, someone who didn't treat her with indifference. That loneliness, it had become unbearable in recent years. Blanca had been raised in an orphanage since she was 14. Her mother had been hit by a car at an unregulated pedestrian crossing. It was already dark, it was raining, and she had been in a hurry to get home. She didn't check if it was safe to cross and placed too much trust in the power of the road sign. The driver was slightly drunk and, as it later turned out, had suffered a heart episode right behind the wheel. Although, that part about the heart issue might have been made up to reduce the severity of his punishment. Either way, Blanca was left without a mother. She had never known her father. He had left when she was only 3, and from that moment on, there had been no news of him. Her grandmother always said it was for the best. Apparently, Blanca's father wasn't a good man and had caused his family many problems. So Blanca was raised by her mother and grandmother until she was 14. After her mother's tragic death, her grandmother naturally took custody of her. How could it be otherwise? The three of them had always been together, living in an apartment that had once belonged to the grandmother's parents. They faced life's challenges side by side, sharing both sorrows and joys. From a young age, Blanca considered her grandmother a true parent. But the tragic loss of her only daughter took its toll on the elderly woman, and soon, a stroke claimed her life as well. And so, while still a child, Blanca was left all alone in the world. She had some distant relatives, but they had hardly ever been in touch. Of course, none of them even considered taking the orphaned teenage girl into their family. Blanca ended up in an orphanage. For a child who had grown up in a loving home, it was a tough place. She had never been spoiled, there wasn't much money, but her grandmother and mother had loved her, cared for her, and treated her gently. In the orphanage, however, the caregivers were irritable, looking at the children as if they were third-class citizens. The older, hardened teenagers had established a strict hierarchy, crushing the weaker and more defenseless ones under their control. Blanca chose her own survival strategy: stay quiet, keep your head down, don't stand out. Thus, for years passed. Blanca did well in school, so after graduating, the orphanage sent her to an economics college. By the time she left the institution, she already had a profession in hand. Blanca would never forget the day she returned home. She walked out of the orphanage gates alone, without an escort. The feeling of being able to go anywhere, without having to answer to anyone, was intoxicating. It even made her feel slightly dizzy. Here it was, the long-awaited freedom. She didn't wait for the bus and decided to walk home. She remembered the way well. Of course, it was far, but she wanted to stretch her legs, gather her thoughts, and process everything. Besides, Blanca had always loved walking. And there it was, her childhood home, the courtyard where she had played as a child. Not much had changed in the 4 years she had spent in the orphanage. Even the same elderly women still sat by the entrance. They were delighted to see Blanca, smiling warmly and bombarding her with questions and advice. She chatted with them for a while before heading upstairs to her apartment, the very place where she had once been so happy with her mother and grandmother. The apartment greeted her with silence. Blanca immediately flung open all the windows, letting fresh air in. Dust, cobwebs, neglect. She quickly grabbed a cloth and set to work, determined to restore order. Her hopes for a miracle had not come true. As she approached the front door, she had imagined something entirely different. These hopes were irrational, of course, but still, she had pictured a warm, lived-in space, a cozy home. She had envisioned her grandmother bustling in the kitchen, hurrying to set the table with a delicious meal for her granddaughter. She had imagined her mother stepping out of the living room with a radiant smile, overjoyed that her daughter had finally come home. But the apartment was empty. And perhaps at that moment, Blanca finally, fully realized she was alone in this world now. Her independent life had begun, and from now on, everything depended on her. For the time being, Blanca had money. While she had been in the orphanage, her survivor's pension had accumulated in a special account. She also had a decent education. In short, she could make a life for herself. Without wasting time, she got a job as an accountant at a store near her home. The salary wasn't high, but the management was supportive. This allowed Blanca to enroll in university for an evening program. She wanted to fulfill her grandmother's and mother's dream to earn a higher education. She finished her studies and found a better job. It required her to commute to the city center, but the salary made up for the inconvenience. Plus, the new position offered much better career prospects. Blanca had grown up, become more confident and strong. She no longer feared the future, she knew she could handle anything. She made new friends. Occasionally, she even had romantic relationships, but they always ended in disappointment. Still, Blanca was content with her life. She had no financial struggles. She didn't live extravagantly, but she had enough for food, clothing, and entertainment. She supported herself well enough to renovate the apartment and even buy new furniture. But loneliness, the inability to share her thoughts with someone close, the unfulfilled desire to lean on a warm shoulder, to receive support, began to weigh on Blanca. She had friends and colleagues, of course. People liked her for her easygoing nature, her determination, her sensitivity, and her ability to support others in difficult times. But that wasn't the same thing. Friends were great. It was wonderful to sit together in a cafe or bar, to stroll through the city streets, to dance at a club. But eventually, everyone went their separate ways, back to their own lives, their homes, their warmth, their loved ones. And Blanca remained alone. To ease the sting of loneliness, she got a cat, Tom. She had found him as a tiny kitten outside the store where she used to work, wet, miserable, mewing desperately. At first, it wasn't even clear if he would survive. But Tom pulled through. Thanks to Blanca's care, he grew into a large, affectionate, and incredibly intelligent cat. Life became livelier with him around. And yet, Blanca often felt cold and alone. Still, deep in her heart, she held on to the hope that she would one day meet the right person and build her own family, a warm and loving home. She imagined a devoted husband and children, 2, maybe even 3 little ones. Thinking about it brought her comfort. But the right man, the one with whom she could create that family, had yet to appear. One New Year's holiday, Blanca and her friends decided to try something unusual for their city, a bar tour by bus. It was a new experience. A bus took cheerful groups around the city's bars. Each stop lasted about an hour, just enough time to dance, sample local drinks, and enjoy music, laughter, and jokes. Before long, the passengers mixed, forming one friendly, lively crowd. It was exciting to ride through the city's streets in a bus decorated with bright garlands, surrounded by festive energy. And then there was Jose. He was part of a group sitting at the back of the bus with his friends. Blanca noticed him immediately, tall, athletic, with a dazzling smile and eyes of an extraordinary color, icy turquoise. Every time their eyes met, they exchanged easy smiles. And every time, Blanca felt a sweet flutter in her chest. She hoped he would approach her, start a conversation. He did, toward the end of the tour. Unlike his friends, Jose was completely sober. He hadn't been drinking, he had to drive later, as Blanca later found out. The handsome stranger introduced himself as Jose and admitted that he had been admiring Blanca from the very start of their journey. His words sounded sincere, his gaze was warm and gentle. And there was something about him, something magnetic, calming, deeply compelling. Blanca couldn't even put it into words, not even for herself. What she did know was that being next to Jose felt good. Easy. Natural. That almost never happened when a stranger spoke to her. No awkwardness, no hesitation. It was as if she had known Jose forever. They sat down in a chair together, and the conversation flowed easily and naturally. Blanca's friends, noticing this, tactfully moved away to give them some space. Jose's friends stopped bothering him as well, they probably understood what was going on. Later, Blanca and Jose slipped away. The girl, of course, warned her friends. Even in front of Jose, they asked her to call them when she got home, purposely loud enough for him to hear, just so the handsome stranger would know everything was under control. They walked through the night city, beautifully decorated for the new year, getting to know each other. Blanca spoke openly about herself, without embellishments. Jose was amazed by how many hardships the delicate, beautiful girl had faced in her life. "Wow, you're incredible. I probably wouldn't have been able to handle it. But you stood strong, and with such dignity. You're my hero." Blanca blushed at these words. No one had ever told her she was a hero before. And indeed, it had taken a lot of effort to achieve what she had now. Maybe she really was a hero. Jose also shared about himself. He was born and raised in a village, came to the city to study, trained as a welder, served in the army, and then found work. He didn't earn much, but it was enough to rent a small apartment and manage life. He had big prospects ahead. "I've already got something like a company. Me and the guys are working unofficially for now, but we have clients, people are starting to appreciate us, and the money is slowly coming in. Now we probably need to legalize it, and then the opportunities will really open up. But there's a lot of red tape with that." Jose was a young businessman, full of hopes, plans, and a strong desire to work. That kind of determination was impressive. "I want my own house, a big one with a plot and a garden, and there has to be a pool in the yard," he shared his plans. "And a loving, understanding wife, not like most modern girls, whiny, demanding, lazy." Blanca shook her head. She liked Jose's mindset, and she did her best to show that she wasn't like those silly, spoiled girls. She was an independent adult, despite her young age, someone capable of deep feelings and serious relationships. She really wanted to impress Jose. But it seemed she didn't need to try too hard for that. Jose already looked at her with loving eyes and showered her with compliments. Blanca had never felt so desired, valued, and loved. They started dating, just like it should be, dates, walks, and even trips together. Jose couldn't spend much time with her, though. He had just registered his company, as planned, and was now working on growing it. Of course, this took up a lot of his energy, time, and money, but every free minute he tried to spend with his beloved. Blanca asked him about the business. She was genuinely interested, but Jose always brushed her off. "It's nothing important. It's going as it goes. The prospects look decent, but the details aren't that exciting or impressive, at least not yet. But I really want to know, I do. Especially since maybe I can help you with the paperwork. After all, I'm an accountant. You know, I'm so tired of all this that I don't really want to talk about business, especially outside of work." Blanca nodded, not pressing him further. She understood Jose, felt his mood. If he didn't want to talk, then that was fine. They still had plenty to talk about when they were alone. Jose wasn't particularly fond of talking about his family. Blanca knew that he had never known his father. His mother had brought home a stepfather when Jose was only 4 years old. Soon after, younger siblings, sisters, and a brother appeared. The stepfather turned out to be a cruel man. Jose didn't go into detail, but from his brief comments, Blanca could tell that the man had punished Jose, beating him with a belt, depriving him of food and walks, and making him look after the younger children, clean the house, and tend to the garden. And God forbid if anything went wrong. It seemed that was why Jose had run away from home at such a young age, to live independently. Jose also didn't talk much about his relationship with his mother, but Blanca understood that she wasn't particularly interested in her older son's life. Her attention was focused on her new husband and their children. So, Jose felt like an outsider in his own family and realized he could rely on no one but himself. However, Jose had big ambitions. He wanted to achieve something in life, become financially independent, even wealthy. Money is freedom. Jose would often say, his eyes shining. When you're rich, everyone respects you. You can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. You can tell people exactly what you think of them, instead of putting up with the cruelty of a stupid boss who's much dumber than you. Blanca shook her head. She couldn't disagree with Jose's words. The young man had had a tough life, too. Maybe in some ways, it was easier for him. After all, he hadn't been sent to an orphanage, nor had he experienced the loss of loved ones. But to be an unloved child in your own family, to endure abuse from someone who was supposed to protect and care for you, that was monstrous. Perhaps it was because of these very circumstances that Jose had developed such a strong and determined character. He was a person who knew exactly what he wanted from life. Still, Blanca felt a deep sense of pity for him. The thought of what he had to endure in his own family brought tears to her eyes. But she hid those feelings from her beloved. He didn't like being pitied. Blanca was the one who suggested that Jose move in with her. By that point, they had been dating for about 2 months, and their relationship had become close and trusting. Blanca had long understood that he was the one she wanted to spend her evenings with and greet the dawn beside. So why wait? Jose received her offer with joy. He smiled widely and hugged her tightly. This is just magical. I was almost afraid to believe that you wanted to be with me this much, that you feel the same way as I do. Sorry, I'm rambling. I understand everything. Blanca nodded. Her heart sang with joy. She had been worried, wondering if Jose would start making excuses, coming up with reasons not to commit, but no, not a hint of that. And so, they started living together as a family. It truly felt magical. Now, Blanca had someone by her side that she had always dreamed of. She could tell Jose anything, and he understood her with just a few words and always knew how to support her and what would make her happy. Jose's business was doing well, though his work took up a lot of his time and energy. Often, he didn't even stay at home overnight, and Blanca would fall asleep alone in her bed once again. But now, it was a completely different feeling. She knew she had a close and beloved person, just that today he was very busy, but tomorrow they would have dinner together again, talking about the day's news while the TV hummed in the background. Maybe Jose would even cook something if he came home earlier than Blanca. By the way, Jose never forgot to call her and let her know if he would be late or not coming home for the night. She, too, made it a point to tell him about her plans, like when she planned to go shopping with her friends or go to the movies. Strangely, she really enjoyed these little updates. Before, she never told anyone where she was going or how long she would be gone, but now, there was someone who cared enough to know, someone who actually wanted to hear about it. It seemed like such a small thing, but after spending so much time alone, Blanca truly appreciated these little details. And just recently, Jose proposed to her. It was unexpected. No, Blanca had always known they would get married one day. She couldn't imagine a future without it. They were simply perfect for each other, like two halves of the same whole. Jose cared so much about her. When she was sick, he would make her vitamin drinks and chicken broths, always checking if she was hungry or if she had enough money on her card. No, Jose wasn't a rich man who could shower Blanca with expensive gifts, at least not yet, but it was important to him that his other half had money for bus fare and lunch. It was so touching. And Blanca loved taking care of him, too. She cooked for him with such joy, such inspiration. Still, the proposal was a surprise because it seemed like it wasn't the right time yet. Both of them were working, trying to get on their feet. Money was tight, and Jose was always putting what he earned into his growing business. They were practically living off Blanca's not-so-impressive salary. However, this didn't bother her in the least. And from time to time, when Jose had a little extra money, he would surprise her with gifts, sometimes a big bouquet of flowers, other times a soft toy, little tokens of affection that warmed her heart. "I just like seeing a smile on your face. If I could, I would lay at your feet much more of the jewelry, fur coats. What else do women love? We love people who love and appreciate us," Blanca smiled in response. And it was the pure truth. In the end, it seemed like the wedding was still far away. She wanted a beautiful celebration, and such an event required financial investments. But right now, there was no money for that. However, Jose still presented Blanca with a ring, getting down on one knee, just like in the popular movies, and asked her the all-important question. "Will you marry me?" A wave of shivers ran down Blanca's spine. Her nose tingled from the tears that were welling up. This moment was so touching. For a moment, she couldn't even breathe. "Of course, I will." Blanca threw herself into her beloved's arms. Jose embraced her, started stroking her hair and shoulders. "You've made me the happiest person in the world. How could you doubt?" she asked. "I don't even know. I was really nervous." So, the very next day, they submitted the application. Their wedding was set to take place in 3 months. They could have done it sooner, but that would mean no formal ceremony, just the paperwork. But Blanca wanted the celebration, with music, beautiful outfits, maybe even doves. She dreamed of making the day their family was born unforgettable and special. Jose, it seemed, wasn't too thrilled by her idea, but he understood how important it was to his fiancée and supported her. They decided to skip the extravagant celebration with a crowd of guests and an MC, just the festive registry, as the financial situation was a concern. Besides, who would they invite? They could have a small gathering with friends at a cafe, but Blanca had no relatives. There were some distant uncles and aunts, but they hadn't been very supportive when she ended up in the orphanage. Why would Blanca want those people at her wedding? As for Jose, he wasn't too eager to share his joy with his family either. His stepfather and mother had hurt him a lot while he was growing up, and even now, they only called occasionally just to ask for money, even though he himself was struggling financially. Jose would send them some small change, though of course, no one thought about paying him back. "They think, since I'm a businessman, I'm raking in money with a shovel," he told Blanca. "And they somehow think I owe them for life. But I don't get it. Why should I? I've worked my whole life for them and their kids. I guess I'm supposed to thank my parents for not letting me end up in an orphanage like you." Every time Jose talked about his family, Blanca would hold him tightly. She felt so sorry for him, and she couldn't even imagine what he must have gone through in his childhood. Jose didn't go into details, didn't like talking about it, but just the way his face changed when he spoke about his relatives made everything clear. "Why don't you just cut ties with them?" Blanca asked one day. "I can see how much it hurts you every time." "Well, how can I put it? They are my family, and they're in trouble. I told you, my youngest sister has a heart condition." Blanca nodded. "Well, there's the treatment again, and they need money. How can I refuse?" Blanca only sighed heavily. Yes, her fiancé was a decent and honest man. Despite everything he had to endure in his childhood, he couldn't turn his back on his relatives in such a difficult situation. If Jose had turned his back on his sick sister and the troubles of his parents, Blanca might have even stopped respecting him, because that wouldn't have been her Jose, the noble, sincere, responsible one. Blanca stopped at the counter with the trout steaks. They looked quite appetizing, but the price. Maybe soon the time would come when Blanca would stop paying attention to the price tags, since Jose kept saying his company was about to take off. Just recently, Jose's mother had called him again. Blanca had accidentally overheard the conversation. She immediately understood her beloved was being asked for money once more. "Where am I supposed to get that amount of money from right now?" Jose asked irritably, not realizing Blanca was listening. "It'll take time. I can't gather that much at the moment." On the other end, someone was explaining something to him for a long time. Jose was silent, only sighing occasionally. His face showed anger and disdain. Yes, it was a dissonance. On one hand, he helped his family however he could. On the other, he couldn't always contain his emotions because of the hurt from his harsh, hungry childhood and their exploitative attitude. "Is it again the parents?" Blanca asked when Jose hung up. He looked at her with slightly bewildered eyes. "Did you hear everything?" Jose asked. His previously annoyed expression gradually softened into a kind smile directed at his fiancée. "Sorry, I didn't mean to overhear." "No need to apologize. Besides, I have no secrets from you." "Yes, it's Mom again. Lisa needs a large sum for her treatment, and urgently. She's playing on my guilt, saying there's no one else to help them, appealing to family feelings, and, what's worse, describing the terrible consequences of my sister's condition if nothing is done." Typical manipulation. Blanca shook her head. "Don't fall for it. Manipulation, yes. But Lisa really is in bad shape, and there's no money. I got a bonus, I'll transfer it to you." "Really?" Jose's face lit up. "I feel so uncomfortable." "What are you talking about? We're family. And in a family, everyone supports each other as best they can. You're a miracle." Still, Blanca could see how uncomfortable Jose felt. He was ashamed that he was living in her apartment and, essentially, at her expense. Almost all his earnings went into growing his young and promising business and occasional help for his relatives. And now there was this bonus that Blanca transferred for Lisa's treatment. Jose was happy that his sister would get the necessary medicine, but at the same time, he clearly felt guilty toward Blanca. It was tough for him, and something wasn't quite right with his new company either. That's why Blanca had planned this special dinner so they could both relax, talk openly, and spend some pleasant time in a romantic atmosphere. That's why she was walking between the fish stalls at the market right now. A paper bag was already weighed down by a bottle of wine. She wanted everything to be just perfect this evening. And then, suddenly, someone called out to Blanca by name. A woman's voice. The girl turned around, searching for the source of the sound, and to her great surprise, met the gaze of a gypsy woman with black eyes. The woman was young, about the same age as Blanca, beautiful in an exotic and striking way, flawless dark skin, sharp cheekbones, well-shaped plump lips, jet black eyebrows with a wide arch, and long black hair tied into a ponytail. What was most striking were her eyes. They seemed to burn through you. It was hard to look away from those eyes. For a moment, Blanca even had a fleeting thought, could it be hypnosis? The gypsy woman was walking confidently toward Blanca. She was dressed as any fortune teller would be, a colorful floor-length skirt, a bright blouse with wide sleeves. Only the sneakers seemed out of place. Surprisingly, the garish clothes suited her perfectly. "Blanca, we need to talk." The gypsy woman was already very close and was looking directly into Blanca's eyes. "How do you know my name?" "I know a lot. It's a long story to explain where I know it from, but it's not important. We have something much more urgent to address." Blanca felt a chill of fear. The stranger was acting far too confidently, too forcefully. Stories about fortune tellers who hypnotized and robbed people immediately came to mind. "Don't be afraid of me." The gypsy's face lit up with a bright white smile. "I just want to help you. I'm not a fraud. I won't take anything from you. I will help you, and in doing so, I'll help myself as well. So, you'll be doing me a favor if you let me help you." "I don't understand. Why do I need help? Everything is fine with me. Everything is just great. You just don't notice the trouble that's hanging over you." "But I'm happy right now," Blanca began to argue, wanting to get rid of the gypsy. And leaving wasn't enough. She needed to prove to this persistent stranger that she, Blanca, didn't need help. Everything is fine with me. I haven't been this happy in years. You're wrong. Find someone else. Blanca almost said another victim, but she stopped herself in time. She didn't want to bring negative energy upon herself from this beautiful but strange gypsy woman. Don't trust him, her interlocutor suddenly said, looking Blanca straight in the eyes. Don't trust him. Your fiancé doesn't deserve your trust, and he doesn't deserve your love either. He is dangerous. Don't marry him. Blanca was taken aback. The gypsy knew too much about her, not just her name, but also that she was about to marry Jose. They hadn't even told anyone about the upcoming wedding yet, because they weren't planning a big celebration with a lot of guests. They thought they'd just get married quietly, have a small celebration for the two of them, and then, once they were on their feet and financially stable, throw a big anniversary celebration. But how could the gypsy know that? Blanca felt an uncomfortable chill in her stomach. Don't be afraid of me, the gypsy woman took Blanca's hand. Strangely, this gesture had a calming effect. You shouldn't be afraid of me, you should be afraid of him. Who? Your fiancé, of course. He's not what he seems. Don't marry him. Blanca felt a sharp, icy wave run through her body, her heart began to beat faster, and her breath caught in her throat. She knew one thing, she wanted to get as far away from this gypsy with her nonsense as possible. Blanca yanked her hand away, turned around, and quickly walked towards the exit of the market. She didn't buy any fish. No matter, she would go to the supermarket near her home later. Right now, she just needed to get away. After a few steps, Blanca glanced back to check if the strange woman was following her. No, the gypsy was nowhere to be seen. It was surprising how quickly she had disappeared into the crowd. A strange thought flashed through Blanca's mind. What if it was all just a hallucination? What if her conversation with the gypsy was something like a vision? After all, her head was spinning, and there were some spots flickering before her eyes, just fatigue, or maybe a sudden drop in blood pressure. Probably both. In any case, Blanca decided to forget about the strange encounter and focus on preparing dinner, especially since it was going to be paired with her favorite TV show, so that no anxious thoughts would creep into her mind. But, of course, the thoughts kept coming. Blanca couldn't stop thinking about the gypsy. She even cut her finger while cleaning the fish. She couldn't concentrate on anything. Blanca trusted Jose more than she trusted herself. She had never met anyone who treated her with such care and tenderness. But now, the gypsy's words kept echoing in her mind. Don't trust him. Don't marry him. She wished she could stop thinking about them, but they kept coming back. In the evening, Jose came home and was so happy about the romantic dinner Blanca had arranged that, for a moment, all her doubts disappeared. She felt happy with this person and knew that she made him happy too. No matter what some half-crazed fortune teller had said on the street. But then, Jose got another call. He went into another room and even closed the door behind him. Later, he explained that his mother had been bothering him again, complaining about life, asking for money, and Jose didn't want Blanca to see him upset, so he isolated himself. But now, for some reason, Blanca couldn't wholeheartedly believe her fiancé. Something was stopping her. The gypsy's words kept circling in her head. The next day, Blanca stayed late at work. Quarterly reports required her full attention and focus. She left the office in the evening twilight and planned to call a taxi, but hesitated because she didn't want to spend the money. It was already tight, especially after having to transfer her bonus for Jose's sister's treatment. She could call Jose, of course. He drove an old car, a rusty, creaky vehicle, but at least it ran. Jose was even happy about that. After all, a businessman without a car was like a man without hands. But Blanca didn't want to bother her fiancé. She knew he had an important meeting with a business partner that evening. Probably, it was happening right now. This person could do a lot for the development of Jose's company. Blanca decided not to disturb her fiancé at such an important moment. That's why she headed to the bus stop, hoping that the wait wouldn't be too long. Her route took her past the same market where she had had the strange conversation with the gypsy the day before. Of course, the gates were already closed. It was late, but near the market fence, behind an old, abandoned newspaper kiosk, Blanca once again encountered the same beautiful young gypsy. "Hello, Blanca. I've been waiting for you here for a while." "You? Are you stalking me or something?" Blanca was outraged. "Don't get upset. By the way, my name is Carmen." "Well, there's no need for me to introduce myself. You already know my name from somewhere. Please, I'm begging you, don't trust your fiancé." "Oh, not this again. You see, right now, your fate, it's like a crossroads. If you go down one path, your life will be difficult because of your fiancé. He'll take everything from you. You'll have to start over, rebuild everything. You'll get caught up in bad situations along the way, and there will be more forks, some paths leading to a tragic end. Many paths. But if you take the other path, your life will be bright. You'll meet a good and kind person, you'll recognize him right away. And your fiancé, he's pushing you toward the path of tragedy and darkness, intentionally, on purpose. He's wormed his way into your trust. I see that you love him with all your heart and trust him. But you can't trust him, you can't. You'll be left without an apartment. Leave me alone." Blanca shouted right in the gypsy's face. "I don't want to hear this nonsense anymore." Blanca walked away. Carmen followed her, keeping a little distance, and continued speaking. "Believe me, you can't trust him. He'll deceive you, he'll ruin you, he's bad. Why do you care about me?" Blanca snapped, turning back to the gypsy. "You're a good and bright person. You deserve happiness, and I deserve it too. By helping you, I save myself." Blanca just scoffed and quickened her pace. She had noticed the bus approaching the stop. Lucky break, she thought. She managed to jump onto the bus just before the doors closed. As the bus pulled away, Blanca looked out the window at Carmen, who was watching her with a tense and worried expression on her face. Blanca couldn't shake the uneasy thoughts that had been gnawing at her ever since her strange encounter with Carmen. At first, she had tried to brush it off as some coincidence, an annoying gypsy who had somehow overheard her name and tried to scam her, ask for money or her phone, in other words, to trick her. But now, Carmen had appeared again, and it was clear she had been waiting for Blanca, trying to warn her once more about her fiancé. This time, the gypsy had even introduced herself, and she hadn't demanded anything, not money, not jewelry. It almost seemed as though she truly and sincerely wanted to help. But the more Blanca thought about it, the more troubling it became. Small, seemingly insignificant things about Jose started to stand out and appear suspicious. There he was, locking himself in a room to talk to someone. Or flinching when his phone rang, as if he was afraid of something. Or flashing those two perfect smiles, like he was trying to hide something. The more Blanca dwelled on Jose's actions, the more she realized that after Carmen's words, she couldn't fully trust him anymore. There was something subtle, something almost imperceptible in his behavior that set her on edge. Frustrated, Blanca threw a pillow at the wall. It had been so much easier to believe that Jose was the perfect man, her soulmate. He was working so hard for their future, with his business on top of his job as a welder. His moral character could be seen in the way he cared for his family, despite the neglect and mistreatment he had suffered as a child. He had never abandoned his relatives in times of need. Wasn't that a trait of a true man? Until now, Blanca had been grateful just to have Jose by her side, feeling completely happy in his presence. But after the second conversation with Carmen, everything had shifted. The gypsy's words had planted a seed of doubt deep inside her. The next day, Blanca decided she would find Carmen and get some answers. If the gypsy had such strong opinions about Jose, she owed it to herself to ask for more details, to understand exactly why she was so adamant about warning her. But when Blanca searched the market and its surroundings after work, Carmen was nowhere to be found. She asked several people about the bright, beautiful gypsy, but no one seemed to know who she was. It was as if Carmen had vanished. It was strange. The gypsy's pursuit was behind her now, and no one seemed to be bothering Blanca anymore. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about Carmen's words. The more she thought about it, the more they consumed her. At night, lying in bed, she listened to Jose's steady breathing, her eyes adjusting to the dark as she studied him. She wanted to understand if she could still trust him like she had before. These doubts tortured her. She couldn't confront him directly. She was afraid of hurting him, and besides, if Carmen was right, why would Jose, if he were guilty, ever confess to his plans? That would be naive to expect. Finally, Blanca came up with a surprising solution. She would go to the village where Jose's family lived. He had never introduced her to them, despite her repeated requests. But he always dismissed her. They're a peculiar bunch, not very pleasant. They'll say something to upset you, and then you'll be the one worrying. I've suffered enough because of them. I don't want you hearing their nonsense. But now Blanca was determined. She would go to the village, even if it meant speaking to the neighbors rather than his relatives. She needed to understand what kind of people his family were and, more importantly, what kind of person Jose truly was. She came up with a plan. She would pose as a bailiff, claiming that Jose had taken out a loan and wasn't paying it back, and that she had come to his registered address to follow up on the debt. It was a risky move, but what else could she do? She was exhausted from her own doubts and anxiety. Something had to be done to resolve the situation. And so, a couple of days after making her decision, Blanca took a day off and headed to the village. She knew Jose's address. She had seen it in his passport. The old, abandoned station, the weathered wooden platform, and the small village stretching out on both sides of the tracks. Blanca turned on the GPS and headed towards Jose's house. And there it was, the right gate, sturdy, tall, freshly painted. It didn't look like the people living here were struggling much. With her heart pounding, Blanca pressed the doorbell. A teenage girl, tall, strong, and rosy-cheeked, opened the door. She had the same striking turquoise eyes as Jose. "Lisa, who's there?" a man's voice called out from inside the house. "Who are you?" the girl asked Blanca. "Lisa." So, this was the sister of Jose, the one who always needed money for treatment. But she didn't look like a sick child, more like a miracle of a girl. But appearances can be deceiving. "So, who are you? And who are you looking for?" "I'm a bailiff." "Does Jose Ortego live here?" "Dad." Lisa shouted towards the back of the yard. "It's about Jose." Blanca was invited into the house. Inside, there was a nice renovation. The conversation took place in a well-furnished kitchen. "Would you like some coffee?" asked a middle-aged man. He had early gray hair and calm brown eyes, Jose's stepfather. He didn't give the impression of a domestic tyrant. So this is how well he masks himself. "No, thank you, I'm here on business." "Did Jose do something again?" sighed the man. "Sit down, please, sit down. I understand, this is going to be a long conversation. He applied for a loan and isn't paying it back," the homeowner interjected. "It's a typical story. You're not the first, and you won't be the last to come here with something like this. He either takes a loan from the bank or borrows from people, almost always securing it with his share of our house. Everyone comes to me. Who else is there to go to? Jose himself is elusive. He lives here one minute, there the next. He doesn't have an official job anywhere. How he manages to gain people's trust, I don't know. But he's always been like that, since childhood." The man looked sad and tired, but not aggressive or angry. What he was saying didn't align with Blanca's view of the world. She wasn't prepared for this. Jose had told her something entirely different. The man continued speaking, clearly wanting to be heard. He was venting to Blanca like a psychotherapist, talking about his frustrations with his stepson. "I really wanted to be a proper father to him. I thought he needed male attention. I took him fishing, hunting, taught him everything I could. But Jose, it all just irritated him. He didn't want to work, didn't want to study, and he believed that a person with his looks and his mind shouldn't have to live a life of hard work. Yes, that's exactly how he described the life of ordinary people, ours included. He always treated me and his mother with contempt, and then he just ran away. Blanca learned that Jose periodically got into trouble. In his pursuit of easy wealth, he didn't hesitate to break the law, and his stepfather had to use his connections to get him out of one scrape after another. Eventually, Jose became more cautious and stopped attracting the attention of the police, but that didn't mean the family's problems were over. His parents didn't know what Jose was up to in the city, but from time to time, his creditors showed up, and the parents had to pay off his debts because he often secured them with his share of the house. "This is how we live," sighed the man. "We keep wondering where we went wrong. What did we do wrong by him? My wife is almost sure it's in his genes. Jose's real father was a con artist. Now, we don't even know where he is or what's happened to him. So how much does he owe you, you say?" "No, nothing," Blanca managed to stammer. "He's planning to take out a loan, and I came to check the collateral because the amount is quite large." "Don't give him any money," the man became more animated. "Please, don't give him anything. Refuse him if you can, because we'll have to pay it, 100%, if we don't want to lose the house. And we have children." "Yes, of course," Blanca nodded and quickly left the house. On her way back, Blanca tried to calm herself and understand how much of what Jose's stepfather said was true. Jose had told her many times that this man was good at pretending to be respectable. Could he be pretending this time too? Maybe all of this wasn't true? Yes, the man did seem convincing, but Blanca was completely confused. Carmen's words, the sad, tired face of Jose's stepfather, everything was driving her mad. So, even on the road, with the rhythmic sound of the train wheels, Blanca made a decision. She would find out what was really going on, even if it meant acting dishonestly. The train hadn't even reached the station yet when Blanca had already placed an order on a marketplace, listening devices, tiny bugs. Yes, it wasn't entirely honest, but Blanca had to know the truth. Now, it wasn't just about Carmen's words, who could be crazy or a fraud, but also about the revelations of Jose's stepfather, those she certainly couldn't ignore. Blanca took several deep breaths to calm herself. There it was. A few days of waiting, a few days of listening to the recordings from the bugs installed in Jose's car, all on fast forward. And there they were, the answers to all of Blanca's questions. Well, the main question, could she trust Jose? The answer was clear, no. When Blanca heard the conversation, when she realized what was really going on, when she understood why Jose had proposed to her, she felt like the world had collapsed. Yes, some doubts had been there since that fateful encounter with Carmen, but now Blanca knew for sure, Jose, the man who had once been everything to her, was nothing but a deceiver, a con artist, planning to deceive a young, lovesick fool and take away the most valuable thing she had, her apartment. In other words, Jose was ready to leave her homeless, literally a beggar. Carmen was right, Blanca's fate would have been grim. If Jose's plan had worked, Blanca couldn't even imagine how she would have gotten out of this situation. She likely wouldn't have had the strength to endure it. But now it was all over, there would be no wedding. Jose would get nothing. It would be difficult, of course, to tell him everything to his face. It was even scary. What if Jose got angry? Who knew what might go through his mind? So Blanca decided to cover her tracks. She would arrange a meeting at a cafe, tell him everything in front of people, in broad daylight, and give him a few hours to pack his things. If Jose didn't leave her apartment in that time, Blanca would simply call the police and say there was an intruder in her home. Then she would stay with her friend for a while. Amina would be happy to help. She had just had a baby, so some extra hands and company wouldn't hurt. During that time, Blanca would change the locks on her apartment. After all, Jose had the keys, of course. It would probably be hard to break up with him. After all, to him, she was just a victim, and like an angry spider, he wouldn't want to let go of his prey. Jose would likely start resisting or trying to justify himself, but Blanca had to stand firm. She had to. After everything she had learned, staying together was impossible. She couldn't even bear the thought of it for a minute. The recording from the car, which was automatically sent to Blanca's email, clearly outlined Jose's plan. If needed, this could probably be used as evidence in court if it came to that. But it was unlikely. Jose had his connections. He had been involved in trouble before, and only thanks to his stepfather's ties had he avoided prison. However, the records of his past offenses remained. It was doubtful that Jose would want to attract the attention of the authorities again. Most likely, he would eventually accept that his victim had slipped from his grasp and back off to avoid getting into trouble himself. This fool is right here. Jose's voice sounded self-satisfied and cheerful. She's all mine. She agrees with everything, believes everything, and is waiting for the wedding. Why is it taking so long? I'm not thrilled either, but she insisted on a formal ceremony, so we have to wait. There's a queue. No, later it'll all go according to plan. She'll happily agree to take out that loan. Of course, they'll approve it with the apartment as collateral. I'll tell her it's for the business. I've been preparing her for this for a while now. She thinks I have a company, that it's thriving, but I just need some investment to start making millions. Yeah, of course, she'll believe it. I'm telling you, the fool is in love. Once we get the money, we'll move to the capital, more opportunities there. Yeah, Alfonso's already waiting, everything's ready. Thanks. I know the plan is solid. Her? What does it matter? Let her take it however she wants. We'll consider it a valuable life lesson. Don't trust everyone. She'll figure it out. What? No, I don't feel sorry. You have to teach idiots. Blanca couldn't hear the person Jose was talking to, but she understood it was his accomplice, as it was impossible to determine for sure. From the monologue of the person she had once considered the closest to her, Blanca understood everything. Jose was indeed a con artist. He had been waiting for their marriage to be official so that Blanca would feel like they were a family and take out a loan under the collateral of her apartment. The bank would likely approve a substantial amount. Blanca probably would have done it, without any second thoughts. She loved Jose, trusted him, and dreamed of a future together, preferably a comfortable one. She would have done whatever it took for her man's business to start bringing in a stable income, since it was their common family good. What other choice was there? But it turned out that Jose had entirely different, dark, and criminal plans. He wanted to get money by any means. Blanca's future didn't concern him at all. 2 months had passed since Blanca had opened her eyes to the truth about Jose. He was no longer a part of her life. Blanca was, as usual, returning home from work and was hardly surprised when she saw Carmen at the gates of the market. The gypsy smiled widely and hurried toward her. Blanca was glad to see her. She, too, moved toward Carmen. I know everything is good with you, Carmen smiled at Blanca. You're on the right path to a bright future. You made the right choice. I know you had to put in the effort yourself, but I couldn't tell you everything at once. It's just not the way it's done. You had to figure it out yourself, you understand? Blanca nodded. Carmen, thank you. You really helped me. I don't know what would have happened to me if his plan had worked out. You would have had an unenviable fate, Carmen nodded. I won't even tell you what would have happened, what could have happened. It doesn't matter now. Jose disappeared from my life, from the city altogether, Blanca said. I was afraid he might start stalking me, seeking revenge for his failed plan out of anger. No, don't worry, Carmen shook her head. He really has disappeared from your life forever. He has his own fate, and he will get what's coming to him, but not anytime soon. Later. It will be a harsh blow, but a deserved one. I hope I never hear from him again. You won't hear, you won't know, but you won't forget, of course. My fate has also gone on the right path thanks to our meeting. So I helped you, too? Blanca smiled. You mentioned something about that, but I didn't quite understand. I fell in love a few years ago, very deeply, with a guy whose heart belonged to another girl. So, I performed a ritual and swapped destinies with her. That guy was meant to be hers, but then he became mine, and along with him, her fate became mine as well. And in that fate, there were so many losses, so many tragedies, so much darkness. When I realized it, I was horrified. Yes, it was too late already. Carmen's sorrow and losses fell upon her like a horn of plenty. The guy for whom everything had been set in motion soon died. It was simply written in his fate. Their child, the one Carmen had been waiting for, died during childbirth. The gypsy herself began to fall ill and wither away. In short, the other girl's fate weighed heavily on her, pressing down, slowly draining her strength and life. Carmen needed to conduct a reversal of the ritual to reclaim her own fate. For that, she needed a girl of about her own age, a girl who stood at a crossroads. The gypsy had to help her, to push her away from danger. I saw you then in the fish stalls at the market, and I understood everything right away. I knew you were the one I needed. But for a long time, I thought you didn't hear me, that you didn't believe me. I thought it was all in vain. You wouldn't suspect your fiancé. You thought I was crazy. I saw that. I was scared for you and for myself. Then I had a dream, and I understood. It's all good, you've managed it. You're amazing, you saved both of us. So, will everything really be okay now? Blanca smiled. Surprisingly, Carmen, whom Blanca had seen only 3 times in her life, seemed to her like someone familiar, almost like family. Their fates had intertwined in such an unusual way, it was simply incredible. Yes, now everything will be fine, but a lot still depends on you. Almost everything, Carmen replied. You've become different, stronger and wiser. This experience has changed you. Now you won't make big mistakes on your path. And, okay, I'll give you a glimpse of the future. You'll meet your person, and you'll recognize him right away. You'll know it's him. Will we see each other again? Blanca asked. Unlikely, the caravan is heading to other places. We don't like staying in one spot. The world is big, and there's so much to explore. That's a shame, but I'm glad we met. I'm glad too, Carmen smiled.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.